Welcome, everybody, to the first of what's going to be a monthly Zoom, being connected with Mayor Archive Collective, or MAC. Very happy to be with you today and share a little bit about what's going on and talk a little bit about plans for the future, both MACs and what each of us can do to make sure that everything we have is preserved properly. I know most of you, but I'm Scott Tower, and I'm here today with all of you. But in terms of who's going to be talking, I'm here with Jean Brunet, who is one of the original board members of MAC, as many of you know, and also Jeannie Felkner, another familiar face to everybody. Jeannie's out at the building almost every day, working her butt off and doing a great job of helping everything move forward and keeping people on track. Each of the three of us are going to talk a little bit, share some images with you, and then they're going to have time to open it up for some conversation and questions. Going to hold questions until the end of each of the three of us talking. So hang on to your questions. And if you want to put them in a chat, you can. It's a pretty small group, so it's going to be pretty comfortable. I had intended to ask two questions. I guess I'll still ask them, even though we're such a small group. To raise your hand, who of you have been to the MAC building in Weaverville? Just raise your physical hand. And if your video's off, maybe you can tell us in some other way. Okay. And also raise your hand if you're currently getting the MAC newsletter, the quarterly newsletter that comes out. Okay. If you're not and would like to be, please let us know. You can mention that in the chat. We can make sure that you get connected with that. It's got a lot of information, some interesting stories that I'm sure you might find of interest. So why are we doing this? First of all, let me share with you the mission statement, if we could see that. Oh, I didn't mention Heather Mashandaro, who's here with us on the screen. She's helping with the technical aspect, working as our administrative coordinator at MAC. So just to share with you, MAC's mission statement is to collect, preserve, and share Meher Baba's divine legacy of materials, artifacts, and words with integrity, love, and transparency for the benefit of humanity. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of different pieces to that, but very much what MAC was founded on and continues to focus on. Why are we doing this? Again, some of you are familiar with these details, but really it comes down to two things. One, there's an identification of an urgent need in this time and the need for a long-term plan. The urgent need is because the Baba lovers, I'd not say all Baba lovers, but people who had physical contact with Meher Baba are a very small and dwindling group. And those of us that had contact with the Mandali are also progressing in our age, whether we like it or not. And there's a lot of material out there that we don't want to get lost. Part of my personal motivation, as I've written about before, in my family, some material was lost because the next generation didn't know that it was important to save it. And we don't want that to happen to anybody else or anything else. We really, if you're gonna have the next slide, we have no idea how fortunate we have been and how fortunate we are to live in this time in the proximity to the advent of the avatar. I don't know if it's possible for us to really comprehend how extraordinary that is and how fortunate and blessed we are. And this picture, which is a scene that, so for those of us who visit India in this time, would be very familiar with Mandali members. There's Mani and Arnavas and Katie and Falu waving goodbye to the pilgrim bus as it was leaving. There was a wonderful experience and atmosphere that many of us experienced being there and having an opportunity to spend time with these extraordinary people, extraordinary lovers of God. And it's not all, we take a lot of this for granted. And Now people talk about the post-Mondley era, which we're in. And very soon, the world will be in what I refer to as the post-Mondley contact era, which means not too many years ahead from now, when all of us are no longer here, there won't be anybody alive who actually had physical contact with any of the Mondley to share stories of our contact with them. And so the information about Baba will be, people will get it from stories that we've told our children or other people, but it will be less of a direct contact. And so the information that will be available needs to be preserved, both in the form of correspondence, of photographs, but also very importantly, the stories. One of the things that's very important is the collection and preservation of people's stories, as well as the preservation of artifacts. And this really is about preserving as best we can the fragrance, Baba's fragrance, fragrance of the Mandali, to preserve that for future generations who will not have the benefit of being in the physical presence of either Baba or the Mandali. It's going to be a different experience, and we want to ensure that everything that's available now is maintained and is preserved. We could look at the next. I want to share something that Baba said to Mera about the importance of, in this case, is Sadra. You have no idea just what one scrap of my Sadra will mean to the world in the future. This apparently was an occasion where Mera brought an old tattered Sadra to Baba, asking him if it should be kept or not. And this was his response. We all know that cathedrals are built around supposedly the finger bone of some Christian saint or in other religious traditions. These items they're infused and they're sacred, and they will have meaning for future generations that we don't necessarily understand. So we also, in addition to feeling there is a urgent need, we also feel a need, that's fine, the next one's great, feel a need to make a long-term plan. And as many of you know, this is a picture of the Mac building. It's an old school building, 90 years old, that we purchased 4 years ago now, and have been working steadily to house the archive and other activities that will occur there in the future. And you'll hear a little bit more about the structural side of things and what's been going on from Jeannie in a few minutes. This is a long-term plan. Our idea, as impossible as it sounds, is that this is for 700 years. I really don't know how to get my head around that, but that's what we're trying to do, is to lay foundations both in terms of physical structure, organizational planning, that will last for a very, very long time for future generations. Ann Barker, one of our board members, who is a librarian and in charge of the library that will be there, she always asks these wonderful questions. She says, well, we need to think about what scholars are going to need and want, researchers, in 300 years. And that's kind of a daunting idea, but the thinking is there to try to, as best we can, anticipate what's going to be helpful in order to preserve the essence and the meaning of Meher Baba and his treasures. Another aspect of the mission statement was sharing. And I just want to emphasize that because an archive is not a hole in the ground out of which things never emerge. An archive is a living, breathing, active creation for the benefit of both current and future generations, for people to come physically, to have access to material, to see artifacts, to see photographs, to look at correspondence. And also in this digital age, our focus is on sharing in as wide a way as possible through the internet, so that people from all over the world can have access to these collections, and for their personal edification, for research, for sharing, all of those things. And to that end, I also want to emphasize there is so much work to be done. It's an incredible mountain of material that we need to preserve, protect, process, share, and it's really a gargantuan task. Unfortunately, there are a number of other archives in the world that are hard at work at this. Of course, in India, Australia, California, New Jersey, a number of places. So in no way do we feel that this is a competitive environment. We're just jumping in to do our part in the work. And on the electronic side, we're laying the platform for the creation of our database for archiving to be in parallel in structure to that which is used in India and that which is currently used in Australia, with the idea that in the future, we will work towards some ways that these are going to be integrated with each other. So if you want to find out about what Narina was doing in 1940, you can find out that there's material in Asheville, there's material in India and Australia, and pull it all together so that you have access to all of this to make it as integrated as possible. It's a long-term goal, but the important thing is that the steps that we're taking right now the motivation is to do the best we can to ensure there is the capacity to line up in a way that these things can be integrated in the future. So lastly, Jean is going to talk about this a bit more, but one of the focuses of our time today, it's really important that you make a plan. And as far as we're concerned, it's not important that the plan is that you give whatever you have to Mac. The important thing is that you have a plan, and you'll hear a little bit more about our recommendations for how to do that, so that it's clearly written down what you want to have done with things that you have, whether they go to your children or relatives or any other secure location for future preservation. So really important to take the time. I think the majority of us that have Baba treasures of one kind or another, Jean's going to talk about what is a Baba treasure. The majority of people have these things, and they're either in a shrine or the back of a closet, and most people have not taken the time to clearly write this stuff down. So this is a nudge to move in that direction. You'll hear more about that from Jean in a minute. So I'd like to pass it over to Jean right now, who's going to talk a little bit about some specific Baba treasures and some ideas of what to do with what you've got. Over to you, Jean.
Well, some of the things that I was going to talk about, Scott's already done so. So this might be a bit repetitive, but it's good to hear it again and have it reinforced because of the importance of this topic. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about how to protect and preserve the treasures you might have. You might have them stored in a shoebox, or like my husband did, in a old cigar box at the top of your closet or in a bottom drawer. But now's the time to get them out and look them over and decide on a plan, as Scott just said. This is most important, that you let your inheritors know what you intend, where you'd like your treasures to go to, be it MAC or some other archive. And one of the ways you can do this is by attaching to your will what's called a codicil. And my mom did this at the end of her life. And it's really just a paragraph or so stating your wishes. So you just write down, I wish to send all my treasures, my Meher Baba treasures, to Beloved Archives or Meher Archive Collective. You sign it and you have two witnesses sign it, and it's perfectly legal. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's most important that you preserve the paper documents. Paper deteriorates more quickly than fabric or leather or metal or any other substance. And much of what we have are letters or telegrams or photographs. Some of the letters written in pencil. Pencil fades, the paper deteriorates, it turns yellow. So That's number one, is to preserve the documents, the paper documents. When you go through your treasures, there's something called provenance. And really, this just means a history. So you write down and attach it to each item, where it came from, who gave it to you, the year you got it, and anything you know about it. Whatever, the more information you can give about the item, the better. If it's useless information, we'll discard it, but better to have more than less. And attach that to each and every item that's to be preserved. I'd like to show you for the paper documents what a sleeve looks like. Can you do this, Heather? Come back to me and not have the, can everybody see this? This is what used to be called a mylar sleeve. They're not now just calling them polyester. So you put the document inside, and if it's a letter, you put it on one side and try to keep the envelope, which goes on the other side, and keep them together. These sleeves go into an archival folder, and the folders go into an archival box. So the next question is, where do you get these? And this is a company, you can go online, Archival Methods, everybody can see this, and they have all the materials you could possibly want. You can order them directly from this company, Archival Methods. The other artifacts you may have, whether they're leather or fabric, they should be preserved in plexiglass. And just let me have a drink. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about my voice. I think maybe the only thing I'm going to say is that before we see some samples, is the reason we know all this is because we have two experts on our team. One is Elaine Cox. Elaine trained with Dot Lesnick for many years and worked for 20 plus years at the Trust Archives and learned how to do rehousing. That's her specialty. And our other expert is Kristen Burns, who's a professional archivist. She's in the process right now of setting up this database that Scott was just talking about. And eventually, anyone, anywhere in the world who has a computer will be able to look up, as Scott said, and see and read about any particular item that we have, which will be thousands. So, and that database will be the same one that Australia and the Trust uses. So now we'll look at some samples of treasures. Heather will put them up, please. Heather, oh, here they come. So this was a letter. Oh, wait. This is Baba's hair. Wait, there it is. And it's been preserved in plexiglass, as you can see, clearly labeled. So this is the first thing. The second thing is Baba's signature that's encased in plastic, in airtight plastic.
Sorry, Jean. Sorry, Jean. Okay.
Okay. Okay, go to the next one, Heather. This is a book we all know, Stay with God, that was signed by Baba. Very precious. And there's only a few in the world. This was a letter that Kitty wrote to my son. That was very sweet. Any letter that comes from Baba, of course, is most important. And secondly, anything from a mandali is very important. And these, as you can see, are encased in plastic. This was something written to my first husband by Monty, also now in plastic. So as you can see, letters are very important. This is water from a Baba's bath, and it's not correctly housed. It's in a bottle that's not airtight. So I just actually yesterday put it in it should be in blue glass or black glass in a proper bottle with a, cap on that's tight. And it's labeled. This is in plexiglass, and these are petals from when Baba was interred from the Samadhi, in the Samadhi. And lastly, this is, first of all, not lastly, this is a letter from Bauji that was written to me, very precious to me. And lastly is ashes from the Samadhi that Baba lit. So this is just samples of what we consider Baba treasures. If you have anything like this, should be preserved.
Is that the Dooney that Baba lit?
Yes,
Okay.
the Baba lit. Thank you. And now I think we'll turn it over to the other Jeannie. We have two Jeannies on our team. I'm Jean and the other is Jeannie. And she's
Hi there.
Jean, do you want to talk about the slide that's up there, a little bit about steps to take?
Yes, this is very important. We just talked about this, having your wishes known attached to your will. The provenance is the history. Record anything you know about the item and attach it to the item. So your family will know there's clear instructions, where you want your items to go to. You may not want them to go to an archive. You may want to leave them to your family because some people want to do that. But your wishes should be known. That's what's most important. And if you decide to give them to MAC, we do have an agreement, a donor agreement, that we'd ask you to fill out and sign. It's quite simple. Maybe Heather can show it. Here it is. It's not complicated. You just fill it out and sign it at the bottom and email it back to MAC.
Also, Jean, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so also, Jean, I remembered what you said the other day is if there's a story connected with that item, that's very important to glue the pieces of the puzzle of the history of Baba's Advent in this area together.
Right. And one of the reasons that we're stressing the urgency of this is because unfortunately, or fortunately, we're all getting older and our memories are not as sharp as they used to be. So in a few years, you may not have a clear memory and the story that goes with the item. So the sooner the better that we all do this, the better for posterity.
Even if it's a Baba button or something where you think this isn't archivable, we don't want to see any of that end up in a landfill. Send it to us. We have many different categories of archiving, from, I hate to say, importance of the history of Baba's Advent, but even if it's a Baba button that you receive from Adi and you don't know if it was touched by Baba or not, still, let's not let it end up being thrown away by someone else, after you die and it doesn't have value to them. We will sort through that.
Yes.
Okay. So, Jeannie?
Yes.
Over to you.
So, yeah, well, Mac wanted me to speak about my role, which has been basically on the site of the building where precious items will be stored. And I felt the tap on the shoulder that said, okay, you got to do this now. And so that's where I have been for the past 3.5 years or so. And I love it. And it's so much fun to me. And I really believe in what we're doing. And if you, so basically you can show the picture, Heather, of the big brick building. This building alone checked all the boxes that the group looking for a building for this purpose had prepared. So I'm just here, as I'm not a builder, just a girl who's a volunteer who shows up every day, to tell you that the bones of this building are strong. So we had an incredible thing to start with, and we can move on to the next slide. There's a lot to do, and our first order of business was to create these safe storage spaces. And this is one connected to the very room where the archiving will be happening. And go ahead, move on. You can see the steel netting, I don't know what it would be called. This is in preparation to pour the solid concrete ceilings and floors and walls. So the safe storage space, that's what these 2x4s are in the picture to the left, is in preparation for that big concrete pour. Go ahead to the next. This safe storage space room is solid concrete. It is now walled up in that open space. And it has steel studs, which will have a closed cell insulation. And this room is climate proof, 100%. It has its own climate control 24/7, 365 with a closed cell insulation, concrete floor to ceiling. Suffice to say, Baba's preserved items will be safe in this building. Go ahead and move on. This is the safe storage space now with the concrete wall put up. And then this room with the wooden floor is the archival workroom. All the rooms, move on, Heather. All the rooms in this building are very bright and amenable to cheerful work. This is our stalwart volunteer, Wilson, and what he's doing right now is taking the nails out of the hardwood maple floors that we pulled up on the first floor, which all will be repurposed. Nothing gets wasted on this job, nothing. Move on. Next slide. This is James, our woodworker. Speaking of not anything being wasted, he's making the window sills, which we're redoing so that we have a nice deep set window with sills out of poplar that Peter cut down and had milled. So again, everything we have, we use. Move on. This is me grinding the floor in the old boiler room. The old coal bin, the old coal bin and the boiler room have been fixed up, and now they're used as storage rooms for tools and supplies. Move on. This is an example of what we got. Even though the bones of the building were great, there was some work to do. And if you move on to the next slide, you'll see that this, again, the next one, that's a before as well. I mean, you see where the radiators were taken out, walls were reinforced. Next slide. This is where the floors are all reinforced. The joists, this have extra struts put on them, and notice that big steel I-beam. That is just a triple and quadruple reinforcement on these floors. And this is going to be the downstairs bathroom stalls. And you can move on. And you will see these, this is the framing in for the downstairs bathroom stalls. We have a bathroom here, a handicap bathroom here, and 4 bathroom stalls here. Sinks will be here, and that's the elevator lift, the lift shaft. It goes from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. Move on, please. These are the guys putting the wallboard on the lift shaft, we're calling it. Notice these concrete reinforced doorways. Each doorway in the building that was cut to create more rooms have been reinforced with concrete. It was a big project and a lot of fun. Moving on. This is our guy, Jamie, cutting rebar to put on the reinforced, the struts on the joist. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just know that's what they were doing, and it's really strong. Moving on.
No, talk about that picture on the right.
Oh, me, that's me.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's me doing what I usually do, which is just cleaning up, construction cleanup. And it's showing a wall where a big chalkboard was removed, and the plaster was then repaired with mortar, and then a pretty fine plaster put on top of and repaired. That wall is now ready to be primed and painted.
Thank you.
Moving
That's
along.
it. That's the end. That's
Okay.
the end of the slideshow.
One thing you can notice about the background in this picture is the colored walls. All the old paint has been removed, and you see the old doorways. That's original 100-year-old heartwood pine casings and doors. Excellent quality wood that you really couldn't get these days without paying a lot of money. So we have those, and instead of ripping out the doors and putting new doors, we stripped all the paint off, and we're using that excellent quality wood for our doors. Just so you know, when we work on this project, we do each process thoroughly, and nothing is wasted and nothing is done in a shoddy way. We do this with the idea in mind that for hundreds of years, these precious items will be stored in this building so that people can share in the history of Mayor Baba's Advent. Why? Why not? What the heck else are we going to do? Jai Baba.
Jai
Thank you, Jamie.
Want to just follow on that. Those of you that are familiar with the project know this, but if you're not, Peter Nordine wasn't featured in any of the photos, but he's an absolute center point of the hub of all of the work that's going on there, working tirelessly every day, overseeing the smallest detail. He's quite a taskmaster when it comes to things being done properly. And these 2 young guys, one of whom you saw with all those sparks flying, Jamie, another younger guy named Connor, they're both functioning as the caretakers. And in addition, there to the paid workers, we have some people who are being paid for their professional work. They're having this experience of, in a way, being Peter's apprentices on a couple of things, teaching them how to do things like plastering, which I gather is a bit of a lost art, and you have to do it properly. The attention to detail is extraordinary. And I know a number of people have asked us, well, why isn't this done yet? What's going on here? There's a variety of reasons. COVID certainly had a huge impact on a variety of aspects of the project, and held things up in different ways. And it's also this attention to doing things properly for the long term. And a lot of that you don't see, and a lot of that no one's ever going to see, because it's going to be behind a wall or someplace else. We redid the roof on the classroom side of the building where the archive is going to be. And before redoing the roof, we looked at the structure of the roof. And under Peter's direction, a lot of repair was done. his opinion is that the outside of the roof is good for 75 years before it's going to need attention. And the roof structure itself, he thinks it's got a few hundred years in it. So there's a level of attention to detail that's really impressive. And lastly, Jeannie talked about volunteers. Rough estimate at the moment, we figure we've had over 10,000 hours of volunteer labor. Jeannie's time and Peter's time are in that mix, as well as lots of other people who've come, some for many months, some for a day or two. And one of the things that has struck me from some people who've, we've thanked for their time, and it's been very moving to hear them say, well, actually, we're really grateful. We feel it's a real gift to be able to do something for this project, to feel like you're doing it for Baba. And that's, I don't know, I think that brings a smile to everybody's face and heart. So
I, for one, feel extremely grateful to be involved in this, to have this opportunity that I feel Baba has let me have to work on this project. And life is short, and to me it's very meaningful. I can't say I do it for Baba, but I could think about the people who might come in 50 and 100 years and 200 years to partake of the history of Baba's advent, and that blows my mind. So I really feel grateful to be in a position in my life to be able to volunteer at the school. I just wish the days wouldn't go by so fast. And if anyone has any questions about any of these things, about preserving your things at home, about what is archivable, about how we all show up and do our jobs, Heather is directing those questions.
Well, I just want to, I want to jump in here and just say what my initial impressions were when I stepped into the building of MAC. Lane Cox whisked me away to the building, and I met Scott there, and we went on a tour, and I was in awe of what was going on and how much work all these people were doing. And the love and care that was going into the building and the recycling of the materials. There were all these neat little piles of specific sized wood in the auditorium. And I could just see the future of the building being such a hub for activity and plays and concerts or lectures and exhibition space, and people can come in there and meet for lunch. Scott even talked about a cafeteria on the bottom floor, which is like, would be the icing on the cake, the cherry on top. People coming there for lunch and spending a day socializing, or just picking up and being there in the middle of all those artifacts that were so dear, that are so dear to us because they were part of Baba's legacy, part of his mom Mandali's legacy. And I decided right away that I wanted to give my sadra. I have a sadra that Jack Small gave me. That was Baba's sadra. I wanted to not to have the sadra for safekeeping and for posterity, so that would be a place where it would truly be shared with multiple people. And so that was my initial impression. I just wanted to jump in there. I see you have a question, Mikhail?
Actually, it's not a question, but to share my feelings about when I saw the first video that you put up of what you were doing there. I was so moved. And it was during COVID. I think it was the beginning of COVID, where everyone was locked in. And this beauty just jumped out And I was so moved because I felt Baba was preparing a place for the community, also not only for the archives, which are very important, but also for any other thing that might happen. And this place is so perfect for it, because it has all the space for community, all the land for community, all the water for community. And it just gives me the shivers all the time, and it brings tears, to know what you're doing there is just so amazing, so important, not only for those 700 years, but even for the safety of Baba's lovers, if there need be. So it just moved my heart strongly. And the work that you're doing through this video, I saw the work, and what work you're doing there, what actual physical work, and reinforcing everything, and not only for the archives, but for anything. So, wow. Jekava to all this. It's wow. Much strength and much love and much appreciation. It's a beauty. Thank you.
And at some point today, we just really wanted to cover the precious items, how to care for them now, and thinking about where you would want them, and writing that down for when the day comes when you're ready to take this coat off. But we'll have to do an entire Zoom meeting just on the building, because it's so much, there's so much that we can't cover, and it's so exciting. It has a ton of potential.
It is exciting, and wow, what kind of work you're doing, physical on-spot work. Wow.
It's really hard, but it's fun if you just take it one day at a time. What are we going to do today? Don't look at the whole building. What are we doing today? What is on the critical path? And then we do that. And almost 4 years in, we're still doing it. Okay. Jai Baba.
Any other thoughts or questions or topics that any of you would like to share? Evie.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Evie. I live in North Carolina. I was curious, I guess this is for Jean, because what I saw with some of those precious items was that they were put into plexiglass. So I have two questions about using plexiglass. I assume that when something's embedded, like, I don't know, Baba's hair or maybe rose petals or something, that they're not able to be moved because I guess, is it poor? I don't know. My second question is, in the future, let's say 100 or 200 years from now, if there are a lot of objects that are preserved that way, does that become a liability in terms of storage space? And is that preferable, or is it better to try to, let's say, put a garland or something into a sleeve so it's flatter?
Well, I guess it depends on the item. Some of them are airtight, but they're not all. Baba Sadra, in some cases, is in a case that opens up. Now, those rose petals are sealed, so you'd have to break the plexiglass if you wanted to get at the, touch those. So I guess it really depends on the item. I don't know in Asheville who does this. I guess Elaine knows. I know in New Jersey, there was a company that specialized in it, and you could take any item and they would encase it for you. There must be an equivalent company here. I just don't know who they are. But there are companies that do this for you. The only downside is that it's expensive. However, if you donate your items to MAC, it's MAC's bill, right? MAC will do this for you. So that's a big plus. And I guess any other archive would be the same.
Scott, does Mac take promised gifts? Can you talk about that?
It does. And we have some in that state at the moment. Someone who has a quite an extensive collection of quite unusual things, wants to make a plan, would like to live with the material, doesn't want to part with it at the moment, but wanted to make sure that on their passing, they don't have children, that it would be turned over and appropriately cared for by Mac. So that is one of the ways that people can. You don't have to. We're not knocking on your door saying that you have to turn over your treasures to the archive police or something like that. Nothing like that whatsoever. More, as we said, make a plan, and if you want to have your intentions that something comes to Mac, those are agreements that we can work up with you. Some of the feedback we've gotten from some people is, I just want to give you something. I don't want to sign an agreement. I don't want to deal with this paperwork. And I just want to say this, it's part of our doing our job and feeling that, Baba was an absolute stickler for the smallest detail, as many of you know from countless stories of, every paisa was accounted for, and things were done properly and with care. And we feel as part of our charge or the job that we've taken on, and that Mac will continue to honor, is to do the very best we can for both the present and the long term. And part of that is having clear, straightforward agreements. And I think a lot of people sometimes feel that this is an extra level of complexity or something. And really, it's just are honoring the donor, that their wishes are properly recorded and carried out, are honoring the value of the items, that they're going to be preserved well, and underneath it all, hopefully honoring Baba and doing the best we can to protect and preserve precious things, whatever they may be. We talked about this being the first in a series, and we don't have a full calendar laid out, but as is already mentioned, some of the topics going into more detail about archiving from home. Jean has given a wonderful presentation with some really important information, but there'll be an opportunity to go over that in more detail. We have a video that we previously made that Elaine Cox was one of the primary people in that, going into a little more detail about what do you actually do with that letter? Jean is given the most important thing of how you protect it in a proper sleeve, but that video that we have goes into more detail, and I think it could be a topic for another Zoom for those people that I really like to know. I'd like to see a step-by-step, what should I do with this letter from Mani? It's precious, and it's been kicking around in a drawer or a folder, and I live somewhere where it's really humid, and I'm concerned about the moisture, all these things, to give some very practical ideas of what you can do yourselves at home. One of the other ideas for future topics, and we're very open to hearing from you or anybody else of suggestions or requests for certain things, that this effort is really about sharing information about Mac, getting the awareness of Mac to as broad an audience as we can, but also building community and connection and outreach. So a lot of that is hearing from you along the way and having an active dialogue. So to that end, some of the future potential topics include interviews with other people that are specifically involved with Mac, including some of the folks you may have seen in the video, or not the video, the slides that Jeannie showed, but also other people in the Baba world who are connected with archiving, including other archives. It's about creating a dialogue, sharing information, and really getting the word out that this is important stuff. It's not the message isn't about the Mac being the important thing. The message is that the treasures and the history and the legacy and the long-term value is what's important. And wanting to build a broader community of awareness of the importance of protecting and preserving what we have.
Scott, I'd like to talk about that. The stories are everything. A couple of people here in the Myrtle Beach community have proposed that they give their treasures to Mac, and I've been over to their house and they start telling me the stories, and the stories are intoxicating. Mansari gave me this scarf. Oh, and I remember the details of it. Somebody, Theus Malmberg was walking along the Samadhi path, picking up pebbles. And Mansari was taking one of her rare trips to the doctor. She would hitch a ride to the city and take at the same time they converged at the Samadhi path. He was going up to the hill to do duty. He always did Samadhi duty during Duni, and she was walking up the hill. And she said, "So you're picking up pebbles, huh?" And he said, "Yes. And it's my habit." And she laughed. She chuckled to herself. It's a very simple story, but I could just see the whole picture in my mind of the two meeting up and walking up to the tomb. And, he was, these are some of his promised gifts that he would give, these little trinkets and treasures that he picked up on the Samadhi path.
Thank you.
So the stories mean everything. Without the stories, we don't have the context for the treasures. Now, a lot of people may be leaving their treasures, but if the stories aren't there, it just gives them so much more value, not only for us as listeners, but for posterity, for the people who will be putting all the puzzle pieces together. Because these Baba books will not end. They will keep on coming out. There will be scholars in the future who will use our database with all of our scanned archival materials and photos of our objects. And they will be piecing together stories from these little bits from archives all over the world. Baba archives in Australia, in California, in North Carolina, Meher Center, and the Trust archives. So these stories are the most important thing to preserve.
Very, very true. One of the projects we have, Kristen Burns, who Jean mentioned, is our archive manager and a professional archivist. She's very interested in oral history projects. And so one of the many things we're looking at is helping to facilitate the recording of individual stories. Because for most of us, I don't know, I can speak for myself. Some people's awakening and path to Baba was through the minutia and extraordinary details in God Speaks. That's what brought them in. And while I personally find that fascinating and moving, for me, what has touched my heart has been the stories in Mandalay Hall, the stories that Eric shared, and also just hearing from other Baba lovers what their Baba story is, what their connection is. Because I think if we hear a story like that with open ears and an open heart, it can't help but touch us in the sharing of it. And that's just as important as the physical. Well, it's as important as many of the other things. Certainly anything that was at immediate contact with Baba is in a different category of his touch, his blessing. But in terms of other letters and other photographs, these are all important, but so are the stories, because for me, the word that comes to mind is fragrance.
Mm.
If you get a fragrance of of love story, of the dance with the beloved in all of these things, and I feel very passionately that we want to preserve this for the future as well, so that it's not just words on a page, and the important books that have been written, but also the human contact. What was it? I remember thinking I studied early Christianity and was very taken by, what was going on back then. What was it really like? We don't really know. And so some of us do. A few people do who were with Baba, but at least living in this era, there's experience. And for people hundreds of years from now to be able to hear that and get that personal story, I think is it's a big thing that we want to preserve. I see there's a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. One of them is about how will you display or share the backstory? One of the rooms in the building that's being renovated, Jeannie focused on the safe storage room and archive workroom. There's also a display room. There will also be a Baba room reflection meditation space that will have space for things to be displayed. And certainly we won't be able to display everything all the time. There will be a certain amount of rotation that happens that will be curated. Elaine Cox is one of the things that she has required for our archive workspace is a special table of particular dimensions and criteria. And the purpose of this table is for making boxes, which she's quite skilled at. So to make display boxes, well, boxes for archival preservation, but also methods of display so that when people come physically to this site, they will have access. Absolutely, part of the main mission of MAC is that things are accessible and shared to the greatest degree possible. I didn't see any other questions in the chat directly.
I think the thing that about the stories that go along with the item is also what will give people in the future a real well-rounded picture of the history of this time.
Mhm.
The way the Manjali told us stories about Baba gave us a well-rounded picture of Baba's lifetime.
Mhm.
It'll give people the stories that we have with the Manjali, these special, extraordinary people you'll never find in the regular world like that. It'll give that well-rounded history to those people.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that's really important that we're doing is we're collecting the information very shortly after Baba lived, and it will provide a base for generations, 200 and 300 and 600 years down the road to get to the original source of the data,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the limitations of Christianity, because so much of it's gotten buried and hidden and twisted and interpreted to fit particular religious beliefs. And that's one of my prime motivations for participating in this whole project, is just contributing to the capacity of future generations to get their fingers on the original source.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's why Baba kept silence. And his words weren't heard. But it's interesting in this advent of Baba, the avatar, how much information was left and how many tangible things were left. So how sweetly the Manjali gave us things.
Mhm.
And it is our duty to make sure that they're preserved, protected, and shared, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah. I believe Marjapan looked like you had a hand raised. Do you have a question or comment? I can't see you.
That was a thumbs up. She liked what
I
Jeannie
did not
said.
have my hand raised, but I do have a question. Question.
Uh-huh.
Is the building going to be protected against tornadoes? Is it strong enough for that?
Yes.
We believe it is. We're not in Kansas, thankfully, in that regard. One of the reasons of choosing this,
Yeah, but with climate change, there have been tornadoes.
there have been. This is an extremely solid building.
You know,
I can't say
it's,
specifically how strong a tornado what it would do, but in terms of what's available, it is extremely well built and solid, and we feel that it's in good shape to withstand what the elements have.
we'll get into that when we do our Zoom show about the building. And if anyone's close enough to come and see and feel for themselves, but these safe storage spaces are solid concrete. And like I said, they have their own climate control, not connected with the rest of the building. And I like to tell people, because they will have a closed cell insulation inside the steel studs, that I mean, and I hate to say this because I don't even want to put it out there, but they are fireproof, moisture proof, bomb proof, tornado proof, hurricane proof, to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
That was very obvious in the film that you made, and it was so impressive. Putting all the steel, peeling it all up and putting all the steel inside, and then putting all the concrete inside, double concrete, and taking care of the roofs in that way. It was wow.
Well, so just so people know that we're not, we're putting so much of our thought and energy and skills into this. Well, they may be saying, why is it taking so long? We will not skip a detail to rush the project. And we do not waste. We use as much volunteer power as we can, and we reuse as much product as we can. So we're doing the very best that we physically are capable of doing to ensure that Mayor Baba's things will be protected in, with some people call it a vault. I like to call it a safe storage space. And you have my assurance, I'm not a builder, but my assurance as me being there every day, that I would feel safe in there in a tornado or a hurricane.
And Baba will take care also. For all this work done for him, Baba will take care.
Vereshta, you have a question? Are you Vereshta?
Yes, hi. Yeah, sorry I was late to the meeting and missed part of it. I look forward to catching up with the video recording later on. One of the questions I had was, part of the Advent story is all the celebrations that have taken place honoring Mayor Baba. And, we do end up with a lot of flyers and brochures and material that people are donating. And we have all collected as Baba lovers. Is that of interest? Pamphlets or brochures that, were put together in celebration of various events.
It is of interest. And we do have a collection development policy, which is available for anyone who wants to look at it, which lays out in fairly broad strokes the priorities, some of which we mentioned earlier. Anything that had direct contact with Baba obviously is the top of the list, and then going down from there. Finding out if someone has such a collection or a box full of things, finding out a little bit about what it is in advance is really helpful for our being able to determine, is this something that would be appropriate? Our general policy is to say yes, with the understanding that if it doesn't fit into what we've got, or if it's the 47th copy of a particular edition of the Glow, that, we can do something else with it. This is a question we're wrestling with because there's so much stuff out there. There's so many people with copies of things and books. And I think we would like to support the idea of being a place to hold on to these extra copies, and there in the future being able to share them out to new centers or new groups. It's a discussion that's in process. It gets a little bit complicated when you start to think about the sheer volume that could be involved in storing all that material. But to go back to your question, the answer is yes. And we're happy to be in discussion about what happens with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Fresh Day. Nice to see you.
And
Nice
that-
to see you.
And also, I'd like to add that, it will be cared for properly if we can't use it, if it's a black and white flyer of a Baba meeting, and there's an image of Baba, that we would do what has to be done properly with an image of Baba.
Mhm.
And do you know that we have 2 people involved in Mayor Archive Collectives that have degrees in the library sciences? I thought that was very interesting because Don Euchre was one guy who said, I have so much stuff, but I'm not giving it to you until you get someone involved who's got a degree in library sciences. And I thought, Paul and Shelley told me this, and I thought, who the heck has a degree in library sciences? And just then Ann Barker and Chris moved here, and she has a degree in library sciences and worked as that for many decades. And then Stephanie moved here, and she also has a degree in library sciences. What the? Didn't know. So just so everyone knows, we do have people with that expertise.
I just want to give a shout out to the board. They do the work of raising the money for all this work and to hire staff. And they work very hard and most days of the week. So they really deserve like an applaud. And we are 100% donation based. So if anybody wants to give a donation to MAC, they can go to mayhairarchivecollective.org and follow the instructions to donate. And we have a newsletter that goes out 4 times a year. And I've taken 3 emails so far that for people that I will send that newsletter to. And then you'll be on our mailing list for the newsletter.
Heather, can I just interrupt just to correct one small thing? You just read out an email address that it's mayhairarchive.org is the website.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
There's
Forgive me.
there's no
And I put it
collective.
in the,
Yeah,
sorry,
Okay.
I put it in the also in the chat.
great. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Is it Mikhail?
Yeah.
How do you say your name?
After Michal.
Mikhail. Hi.
After first said what she said, I was thinking, are you collecting also photographs of maybe group work and group meetings, Baba meetings and things like that? Are you collecting any photos of things like that? Or photos with a mandali or?
Yes. We are. In these photos, it's really important for, I recently was over at the archive building that you've been hearing about. As you can see, it's a work in progress. We're not doing archive work in that space yet. We hope to be doing that soon. We have an office in Asheville where the actual archiving work is taking place, the scanning, the rehousing. And I spend a little bit of time there when I can. And we had a collection of those just envelopes of photographs. And it's, if you have photographs, write down who's in them. It's really important, because after a while, it's like, well, that's a nice photograph, and I recognize one face, but we don't have any idea the context. There's a limit to how much we can process, and there are priorities that we've laid out a little bit already. But I know Ann Barker, who you've heard several people mention, she has a particular passion for histories of Baba groups. That she feels that's something that's important. So, what's the history of the Houston Baba group? I personally don't have any idea, but I'm sure there is one, and it's important. One of the ideas that's been bounced around and hasn't been acted on yet is a program to record the stories from different groups. So in other words, the people who were in the Miami group way back when, or even more recently, both to hear from individuals, but to get the people that are still around in a room together with a couple of cameras and a couple of decent microphones. And even if it's, reminiscing about what went on in that group, that is part of their Baba story and part of the history of what happened. For scholars, certainly someone's going to want to know, who are the people that were around now, and what were they doing, and that whole thing. So the long answer to your question, there is a desire to do that. Part of this has to do with personnel. We got lots of volunteers helping. This project is only going to succeed long term with the input from lots and lots of people. And as I said, there's no shortage of work to be done. Unfortunately, in Asheville is a large Baba community, and many people have come to help physically. There's going to be an opportunity down the road for people to help and volunteer remotely. That's not in place yet. But for example, if we have a particular collection all scanned and documented to a certain point, there'll be an opportunity for people with some clear training to help with the metadata, to help with looking over a letter, and entering in a very particular way keywords that will help someone else search in the future. That sort of thing. And that's something that could be done from afar. We're a little ways away from that, but that's part of what we're thinking about.
I love your idea, Scott, about getting, Baba lovers like the Miami group from back in the day, and just shooting the breeze and getting some stories down about their Baba stories, or the old Chicago group, or the New York group. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be fun. I think it'll also round out the history of that time in Baba's advent. Very good idea.
Farishta, you have a question?
Actually, yeah, a suggestion, if you all have not looked into it. I was on Facebook, of all places, and noticed an ad popped up for enhancing the resolution of photographs. And if I believe the testimony of the advertisement, it's pretty amazing. And having delved into drawing Baba a lot, realizing that the quality of the photograph is so important, and a lot of the older photographs may not be as crisp and sharp as, or the mandali, as we would love to see. And there's software out there to help enhance. I don't know if that's anything in the realm of your work, but it's out there.
It's certainly in the realm, and again, a question of how much can be done by how many people in this moment and going forward. We have in the past had someone who had skills in some photo restoration, and we've done some restoring of some damaged picture slides that were in a humid environment and damaged, for example. So yes, longer term, that's also a desire. Yeah. Many of you are regulars at Baba's Zoom, I imagine or suspect. Some of us here today are not, and I'm aware that it's 12:15, and that we, had an hour slot with ability to go over a bit. I just want to acknowledge the time and see at this point if there's more you want to know or talk about or share with our time today, or if we're ready to pack up.
Please join us for the next one, which is on July 9th, I believe.
I think we're going to call that getting ready to be quiet. If you have topics or ideas that you would like us to do or consider doing, please drop us a line. Let us know. Happy to be responsive to your interests, as well as put out things that we feel we want to share with everybody.
Okay, I'll be the first one to leave if
Hold on. Rosalie, you've got a question.
No question. I'm just saying humor is very important in this Advent. Incredibly important in this Advent.
It is.
And why? One of the reasons I could see is that we're going to go through incredible changes. We are just not there yet. We are not the new humanity. And humor, I could say, is just critical. Yeah. I look for it daily.
Good. Well, thank you. It's a good reminder for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know why it's ending, because there's nothing till 2:00.
Yeah.
well, we don't want to bore everybody.
Well, you can't help whether you do or not. Yeah,
True.
that's up to the person receiving it,
Yeah.
But I'm listening.
Thank
I
you
just
for
want
coming.
to,
Very beautiful. And thank you for all your work.
oh,
Very
thank
important.
you. Thank you,
Thank you
Mikhail.
for coming here today and opening this opportunity to share it with others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being part of it, and thank you to Diana, who's been helpful support, and to Heather, who's helped organize everything, and of course to beloved Jeannie and Jean for all of your contributions to the conversation. It's
And
lovely.
thank you, Rosalie, for your comment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to interrupt. But thank you, Rosalie, for your comment. And thank you, Rosalie, for taking me to Binder House and to meet Erich's mother. I'll never forget that.
Wow, that's precious.
Yes, it is.
And thank you, Baba.
That's right. Thank you, Baba. Great
Yeah.
opportunities for all of us.
Yes.
Let's seize the day, guys. Seize the day.
Carpe diem.
Yeah. Day, Baba.
Look
Debbie-
forward
Debbie is
to
just
seeing you all again.
Debbie Narnita has just joined us. I just wanted
Oh,
to-
just joining us now?
Yeah, looks like, yeah.
Jay Baba, Debbie.
Hey, Baba.
Where are you? I don't see here, participants.
Oh, there she is.
I can't
Much love
see.
to you. Much love.
I was
I
trying to
can't-
sneak. I was trying to sneak in. I
Oh,
didn't
there
want
you
anyone to
go.
see me.
You're
Oh,
looking
I'm gonna go.
great. You're looking wonderful.
I'm not ready. What's
But,
it? Yeah. Mr.
Deb-
DeMille, I'm not ready for my close-up.
Deb,
he says, seize the day. Seize the
Rosalie
day.
was on, so you could tell her that we're using her tuner idea.
Of course. Rosalie knows more Baba quotes by memory than even Al Grasso, and that's saying a lot.
Here, here.
Yeah. And thank
Okay,
you also to
I'm going to
Peter.
hide myself again because
Okay.
anyway, I just want to listen. But thank you
Well,
so
we're
much.
done. We're
Okay,
done,
I'll watch the video later, but I got
Okay.
here late.
Wonderful to
jumping
see you,
off.
Yeah,
Baba.
absolutely.
Say bye-bye,
Nice
everyone.
to
Thank
Hey,
see
you.
Baba,
you.
everyone.
And to Peter as well.
Okay.
Much love, Debbie.
Oh.
Bye. Thank you.